the desert does not hurry. It moves in its own time, a slow, eternal dance between wind and sand, sun and shadow. Here, beneath skies that have looked the same for thousands of years, there is a silence so complete that it feels almost alive. The golden dunes stretch endlessly toward the horizon, rising and falling like the waves of a petrified ocean. Beneath them, so the legend says, lies a place older than memory itself, a place where the wisdom of ancient civilizations still waits, sealed away in stone chambers untouched by light. This is the story of the Hall of Records. It is a name that evokes an almost mystical weight. Some say it is a vast underground library, a vault built by the ancients to preserve the sum of all their knowledge, from the secrets of the stars to the histories of worlds long gone. Others claim it is a fable, a story spun from fragments of myth and wishful imagination. Yet, like all enduring legends, it has a way of lingering. It refuses to fade completely, whispering its presence in the pauses between archaeological fact and unanswered questions. The origins of the tale are scattered like fragments of broken pottery across time. Some link it to the great Egyptian god, Thoth, the scribe of the gods, guardian of wisdom, and keeper of the written word. In their telling, Thoth entrusted humanity's deepest truths to a hidden chamber, ensuring they would survive the rise and fall of kingdoms. Others trace the idea to more modern times, woven into the predictions of mystics and the fevered dreams of treasure hunters. No matter the source, the hall remains elusive, never confirmed, yet never entirely disproven. Imagine for a moment, standing alone at the edge of the Giza Plateau. The air is dry, warm even in the fading light, and the pyramids stand in stillness, their silhouettes sharp against the deepening sky. Somewhere beyond, the Great Sphinx keeps its unblinking watch, its gaze fixed eastward, toward the horizon where the sun will rise again tomorrow, as it has for millennia. It is here that many believe the Hall of Records lies buried beneath the pores of the Sphinx, beneath the foundations of the pyramids, beneath centuries of shifting sand, perhaps even deeper than we can imagine. The thought is intoxicating. If such a place exists, what would it contain? Ancient maps of a world before the flood, forgotten sciences, proof that humanity's history stretches back far further than we dare to admit. The mind drifts easily towards such possibilities in the quiet of the desert evening, where the only sounds are the whisper of wind and the faint, almost musical shifting of grains of sand against one another. But the desert is a patient guardian. It hides as well as it preserves. Whole cities have vanished beneath its surface, erased from sight for thousands of years until chance or persistence revealed them again. Temples swallowed by dunes, roads buried so deeply that even their memory disappeared. The Hall of Records, if it is real, may be the greatest of these hidden places, not a treasure of gold or jewels, but of knowledge. In this story, as with so many great mysteries, light and shadow walk side by side. On one side, the disciplined march of archaeology, surveys, excavations, carbon dating, and peer-reviewed studies. On the other, the shimmering mirage of myth, whispered accounts of secret chambers, prophecies, and strange anomalies found beneath the Sphinx in scans that remain locked away from public eyes. Between these two worlds, the measurable and the mysterious, lies the path we will follow tonight. We will move slowly, unhurried, tracing the legend from its earliest seeds to its modern interpretations. We will walk alongside those who have sought it, the ancient scribes who spoke of divine repositories, the explorers who dreamed of unlocking forbidden truths, and the scientists who brought technology to bear on questions older than civilization itself. We will hear of the prophecies that claim the hall will be found in our own era and of the debates that swirl around such claims, yet we will not rush toward conclusions. Instead, we will let the story breathe, lingering where the past and the present meet. We will pause in the cool shadows of temple ruins, listening for the echo of voices that have been silent for thousands of years. We will follow the threads of myth across continents and centuries to see whether they weave into a single tapestry or fray into nothing more than a beautiful, haunting dream. In the end, perhaps the truth is not in the finding, but in the searching. For there is something within us that is drawn to the idea of a hidden chamber, filled with the knowledge of the ancients. It is a longing for connection to our beginnings, to our ancestors, to a time when the stars were both map and mystery. The Hall of Records is not only a place beneath the desert, it is also a place in the human imagination where hope and wonder dwell side by side. And so, under the quiet gaze of the Sphinx, we begin our journey. The night is deepening, and the sands lie still as though waiting. In the distance, the faint outlines of the pyramids fade into the dark. Somewhere below, if the legends are to be believed, the past waits patiently to speak. But before we can seek the hall, we must first ask, where did this story begin? The story begins, not in a single moment, but as a thread woven through centuries of human thought, a whisper that moves between cultures, gathering detail and depth as it travels. To trace the Hall of Records to its roots is to follow a path that leads back into the hazy borderlands between history and myth, where ancient scribes, priests, and storytellers shaped the truths of their time into symbols that could survive the ages. The earliest echoes of the hall are often linked to the god Thoth, one of the most revered figures in Egyptian mythology. To the ancient Egyptians, Thoth was more than a deity. He was the very embodiment of knowledge, wisdom, and the written word. Depicted as a man with the head of an ibis, or sometimes as a baboon, Thoth was said to have invented writing, recorded the deeds of the gods, and maintained the balance of the cosmos. If any being were to have hidden away the total sum of human understanding, it would be him. According to temple inscriptions and later interpretations, Thoth's wisdom was preserved in sacred texts, writings that contained not only the history of the world, but also the secrets of creation, the cycles of time, and the paths of the stars. These were not meant for casual reading. The texts were said to be dangerous in the wrong hands, capable of granting power over life, death, and the unseen forces that bind reality together. And so in certain versions of the myth, Thoth hid them away in a secret chamber, sealing them beneath the earth until a future time when humanity would be ready to receive them. This idea of sacred knowledge, hidden for safekeeping, appears again and again in ancient traditions. The Greeks spoke of scrolls and treasures hidden in labyrinths or buried under temples. The Mesopotamians told of tablets of destiny kept in the hands of the gods. Even in far-off India, myths speak of hidden archives, guarded by ascetics in remote mountains. Such similarities across cultures hint at a shared human impulse to preserve wisdom from the ravages of time, to place it somewhere beyond the reach of the unready. For Egypt, however, the most tantalizing link to the Hall of Records comes from a different era entirely, the 20th century, when an American psychic named Edgar Cayce gave a series of trance readings that captured the imagination of millions. Cayce claimed that the hall was real, and that it had been built not by the Egyptians alone, but with the help of survivors from Atlantis, a lost civilization of extraordinary advancement. According to Cayce, these Atlanteans, foreseeing their own destruction, split their records into 3 identical repositories, one in Egypt, one in Yucatan, and one yet undiscovered. The Egyptian hall, he said, lay buried beneath the Great Sphinx and would be revealed before the close of the 20th century. Though his predictions did not manifest in the exact way he described, Cayce's words breathed new life into the legend. Suddenly, the Hall of Records was no longer a vague myth, it had a location, a connection to one of history's most iconic monuments, and a prophecy attached to it. For some, this made the legend more credible. For others, it placed it firmly in the realm of the fantastical, but either way, it ensured the story would endure. Yet long before Cayce, travelers and scholars had already been speaking of hidden chambers beneath Giza. The ancient historian Herodotus, visiting Egypt in the 5th century BCE, described elaborate underground passages and a labyrinth so vast it could rival the pyramids themselves. Later, in the writings of Pliny the Elder and Diodorus Siculus, we find hints of subterranean structures linked to the temples and monuments of the Nile. Though none of these explicitly mention the Hall of Records, they paint a picture of an Egypt filled with hidden depths, places where something remarkable might be concealed. It is worth noting that ancient Egypt itself had a strong tradition of secrecy. Certain temple rituals were hidden from the public. Priests were bound by oaths not to reveal sacred knowledge. Tombs were built with false passages and sealed doors to mislead intruders. In such a culture, the idea of concealing a repository of wisdom beneath the sands would not have been unthinkable, it would have been entirely in keeping with their worldview. Still, the Hall of Records, as a distinct concept, seems to be an evolution, a blending of Egyptian religious symbolism, Greco-Roman historical accounts, and later esoteric traditions. In the centuries after Egypt's decline, the mystique of its monuments fed the imaginations of Hermetic philosophers, alchemists, and secret societies. To them, Egypt was the cradle of all true wisdom, and its monuments were seen as physical embodiments of universal truths. In their writings, the pyramids became not just tombs, but initiatory temples. The Sphinx was not merely a guardian statue, but a sentinel watching over the hidden heart of ancient knowledge. During the Renaissance, this fascination deepened. European scholars, newly exposed to Greek and Arabic translations of ancient Egyptian texts, began to weave the idea of hidden wisdom into their own philosophies. The Hall of Records began to merge with other legendary repositories, like the biblical Ark of the Covenant or Solomon's Temple, forming a composite myth of a perfect preserved archive of truth. By the 19th century, as archaeology took root as a formal discipline, explorers brought back real treasures from beneath Egypt's sands, papyrus scrolls, statuary, and inscriptions that had not seen light in thousands of years. Every discovery fueled the possibility that greater wonders might still lie hidden. It was in this atmosphere of excitement that the Hall of Records slipped from the pages of mystical speculation into the fringes of academic conversation. Could such a place truly exist? And so the legend, ancient and modern, factual and fantastical, became what it is today, a tapestry woven from threads of mythology, history, and hope. It draws strength from Egypt's undeniable history as a center of learning and preservation, and from the universal human instinct to imagine that somewhere, somehow, all the answers might be kept safe until we are ready to receive them. From here, our journey must move to the monument most often tied to this legend, the Great Sphinx. For while the Hall of Records could be anywhere beneath the desert, it is beneath the Sphinx that myth and modern investigation most often meet, and in the stillness of that ancient gaze, we may find the first tangible signs of the truth. The Great Sphinx of Giza has stood in silence for thousands of years, its gaze fixed eternally upon the eastern horizon. At dawn, the first light of the sun spills across its weathered face, just as it has since the earliest days of recorded history. The monument is colossal, carved from the bedrock of the plateau itself, part guardian, part enigma, and for many, the most likely sentinel to the fabled Hall of Records. To stand before it is to feel the weight of time pressing down, a sensation heightened by the fact that even now, after centuries of study, so much about the Sphinx remains uncertain. We do not know exactly when it was carved, or by whose order. We do not know its original name. We cannot even be sure of the full extent of its original form. Some believe it once bore a more leonine head, later reworked into a human visage. Such gaps in knowledge create fertile ground for mystery to take root, and in the case of the Hall of Records, it has flourished. The connection between the Sphinx and the Hall is often traced to two main sources: ancient accounts of hidden chambers, and modern claims based on scientific investigation. Together, these two strands form one of the most enduring and tantalizing threads in the entire legend. The idea of chambers beneath the Sphinx is not new. As far back as the writings of the Greek historian Pliny the Elder, there are hints of passageways and hidden spaces within or beneath the great monuments of Egypt. Later travelers, standing in awe before the Sphinx, speculated that it must guard something, a tomb, a treasure, or perhaps a secret more profound than either. Egyptian tradition itself often linked guardian statues to sacred spaces. In this light, the Sphinx could easily be imagined as the protective face above a sacred threshold. But the legend took on new life in the 20th century with the prophecies of Edgar Cayce. In multiple trance readings, Cayce described the Hall of Records as lying between the paws of the Sphinx in a sealed chamber awaiting discovery. He claimed this hall contained the records of Atlantis, brought to Egypt by survivors of that lost civilization, and that it would be uncovered in the late 20th century. Though his timeline passed without such a revelation, his words deeply influenced both public fascination and the focus of certain exploratory efforts. In the decades that followed, a series of modern investigations seemed to hint at something unusual beneath the monument. In the late 1970s and early 1980s, teams using ground-penetrating radar and seismic surveys detected apparent cavities and anomalies beneath the Sphinx and nearby areas of the plateau. Reports described rectangular voids, corridors, and spaces inconsistent with the surrounding bedrock. Some of these findings were published. Others remained locked away in archives, fueling speculation that their full significance was being withheld. One often cited example comes from a 1991 survey by a team that included Egyptian authorities and an American research group. According to accounts later circulated in the media, the scans revealed a large, unexplained chamber beneath the Sphinx's front paws. Official statements downplayed these results, attributing anomalies to natural fissures in the rock. Yet the idea of a chamber persisted, strengthened by the lack of definitive excavation to confirm or refute the possibility. Part of the allure lies in the very impossibility of easy access. The Sphinx is a protected monument, and any intrusive excavation could threaten its structural stability. This means that even with modern technology, the deeper secrets beneath it, if any exist, remain beyond our reach. The longer they remain inaccessible, the more room there is for the imagination to roam. The setting itself amplifies the mystery. The Giza Plateau is not merely home to the Sphinx, but also to the Great Pyramids, ancient temples, and a network of known underground passages and tombs. Archaeologists have already documented multiple subterranean features in the area, some dating to the Old Kingdom, others added in later periods. If there are known tunnels and chambers, why not unknown ones? The plateau is like a vast stone palimpsest, layer upon layer of human activity stretching back into prehistory. Beyond science and prophecy, symbolic interpretations also bind the Sphinx to the hall. The Sphinx faces due east, aligned with the rising sun on the spring and autumn equinoxes. To some, this alignment is more than symbolic. It is a marker pointing toward a moment in time, or a specific celestial event, that could be linked to the hall's unveiling. The blending of human and lion in its form suggests the union of intellect and strength, perhaps a metaphor for the guardianship of sacred knowledge. It is this blend of physical anomaly, symbolic meaning, and historical uncertainty that keeps the Sphinx at the center of the Hall of Records narrative. Even skeptics admit that we do not yet know the full story of the monument. The weathering patterns on its body, for example, have sparked debate over whether it is far older than the traditional date assigned by mainstream Egyptology. If the Sphinx predates the pyramids, then perhaps it comes from an earlier chapter of Egyptian, or even pre-Egyptian, history. In such a case, its connection to a repository of ancient records becomes even more plausible. And then there are the whispers from those who have worked near the Sphinx: engineers, archaeologists, and laborers who tell of narrow shafts, sudden voids in the stone, and sealed doorways encountered during restoration work. These accounts rarely make their way into official reports, yet they surface in quiet conversations, adding another layer to the enigma. Whether these are misunderstandings, exaggerations, or glimpses of something real remains an open question. For those drawn to the legend, the Sphinx is not just a monument, it is a riddle cast in stone, its answer hidden beneath layers of sand and secrecy. It stands at the crossroads of history and mystery, inviting speculation while defying certainty. And in that space between knowing and not knowing, the Hall of Records lives on, not as a proven fact, but but as a possibility too compelling to dismiss entirely. As we step back from the monument in our imagination, the desert wind brushes against our skin. The Sphinx watches on, unmoved by our curiosity, unmoved by the centuries, patient as ever. Perhaps it knows the truth. Perhaps it guards an empty space, and the hall exists only in the minds of those who seek it. Or perhaps, deep within the bedrock, there is indeed a sealed chamber, where the wisdom of the ancients waits for the right hands to open it. But the desert keeps its counsel, and if the Sphinx is a sentinel, then it is one that does not speak easily. The answer, if there is one, lies hidden in the sands it has watched over for ages. To understand why the Sphinx would be chosen as the guardian of such a treasure, we must consider the desert itself, not as a barren wasteland, but as a living, shifting force that both reveals and conceals. For the sands of Egypt have their own way of protecting what lies beneath them, and their own role to play in this enduring mystery. The desert is not an empty place. It is a vast, breathing presence, alive in its own quiet way, moving at a pace so slow that a single lifetime can barely perceive its changes. By day, it stretches outward in a sea of blinding gold. By night it becomes a dark expanse beneath a canopy of stars so sharp they seem almost close enough to touch. This is the true guardian of Egypt's deepest secrets, not a statue or a temple, but the sands themselves. For thousands of years, these sands have been both friend and enemy to human endeavor. They have preserved, and they have erased. They have swallowed entire cities, leaving nothing visible on the surface, only to give them back centuries later, perfectly frozen in time. They have covered the tombs of kings, hiding them from looters for generations, and they have revealed forgotten walls and inscriptions when the wind shifts just so. Archaeologists know this dual nature well. In one breath, the desert can destroy winds laden with sharp grains of sand, scour stone and paint, wearing away delicate carvings and erasing once bright colors. In the next breath, it can preserve with astonishing care wooden coffins sealed away from moisture, papyrus scrolls still bearing their ink after millennia, fabrics still supple to the touch. This strange balance between concealment and preservation is what makes the desert such a perfect guardian for a place like the Hall of Records, if it exists. The Giza Plateau itself offers a glimpse into this relationship. Even in modern times, new discoveries are made not by digging deep into untouched earth, but by following subtle changes in the sands. A sudden depression in the surface, an unusual alignment of stones peeking through, or a shift after a seasonal windstorm can reveal the outline of something buried beneath. The desert gives hints sparingly, as though testing whether we are paying attention, and then there are the shifting dunes. They are not fixed, they migrate with the seasons and the storms, slowly drifting across the landscape. Over decades and centuries, these movements can bury entire structures, sometimes to depths that make them impossible to find without technology. Imagine, then, how easy it would be for the desert to keep a single chamber, even one as significant as the Hall of Records, hidden from human eyes for thousands of years. A shift of a few meters in the surface sand might mean the difference between a visible ruin and a completely invisible treasure. Legends speak of sites that have vanished completely under the desert, their locations known only in stories passed down by nomadic tribes. In the far reaches of the Sahara, there are tales of ancient stone settlements that appear only after certain storms, visible for a day or two before being swallowed again. The people who live closest to the desert understand this better than anyone. The sands do not belong to us. They move according to their own will, and we are merely temporary guests upon their surface. The desert's role as a guardian is not only physical, but symbolic. In many cultures, deserts are places of trial, transformation, and hidden truth. They are landscapes where the unprepared cannot survive, and where only those who endure the hardship are rewarded. For seekers of the Hall of Records, this symbolism holds a quiet weight. Perhaps the desert is not simply hiding the hall, but testing humanity's readiness to find it. If the knowledge it contains is truly as vast and powerful as the legends suggest, then maybe it should not be revealed to those who come carelessly or with greed in their hearts. Even in the modern age, with satellites mapping the Earth from above and ground-penetrating radar peering below the surface, the desert keeps its secrets. Technology can tell us where anomalies lie beneath the sand, but not what they are, and not why they are there. A reading on a machine is not the same as a door opening into a lost world. The desert still decides when, and to whom, it will yield its treasures. And so, when we think of the Hall of Records, we must think of it not only as a sealed chamber built by human hands, but as a place embraced and guarded by the earth itself. The sands are not passive, they are active participants in this long silent story. Every grain has been shaped by wind and time, passing over countless generations of human history. They have witnessed the rise and fall of kingdoms, and they will remain long after we are gone. The Sphinx may be the sentinel that marks the spot, but it is the desert that holds the key. Until the sands decide to loosen their grip, the hall, if it is real, will remain as it has for ages, unseen, untouched, and unspoken, except in whispers. But if the hall truly exists, who built it? Who decided that this knowledge must be hidden away, and why did they choose the desert as its resting place? To answer that, we must look beyond the dynasties of Egypt, to the possibility that this chamber may have been the work of a people even older, whose memory has all but vanished from history. If the Hall of Records exists, perhaps it is not the work of the pharaohs at all. Perhaps it predates them. A creation of a people whose name has been lost to time, whose monuments now lie buried far deeper than our history books reach. The sands of Egypt may guard the hall, but the mind must travel further back to a time when the Nile may not yet have flowed in its present course, and when the Sahara itself might have been green. Mainstream archaeology places the construction of the Sphinx and the pyramids firmly within the Old Kingdom of Egypt, roughly 4,500 years ago. Yet there are scholars, and more than a few independent researchers, who suggest that certain features of the Giza Plateau point to an origin far older. They note the patterns of weathering on the Sphinx, which some geologists claim could have been caused by heavy rainfall, not wind and sand. If this is true, the monument might date to a period long before Egypt's deserts formed, perhaps as far back as 10,000 BCE, when the region's climate was far wetter. This idea opens the door to tantalizing speculation. Who could have carved such monuments in that distant age? Were they ancestors of the Nile Valley civilizations, or something else entirely? Here the legend of the Hall of Records intertwines with stories of lost worlds, Atlantis, Lemuria, or other forgotten cultures, whose knowledge was said to surpass even our own. Atlantis, as first described by Plato, was a great island nation that fell into the sea in a single day and night of misfortune. For some, this is not a mere allegory, but a memory, a record of a real civilization destroyed by cataclysm. If Atlantis existed, it would have been home to advanced engineering, mathematics, astronomy, and perhaps even technology beyond our imagining. Survivors of that disaster, fleeing across the seas, may have carried their knowledge with them, choosing Egypt's stable Nile Valley as a safe harbor. From this possibility springs a compelling theory that these refugees, or perhaps an even earlier people, built the Hall of Records as a vault to preserve the wisdom of their lost homeland. They may have known from experience how fragile civilizations are, how easily knowledge can vanish in a single disaster. The desert, stable and dry, would have been the perfect place to hide their archive from both the elements and the ambitions of men. Egypt's own traditions leave room for such interpretations. Ancient texts speak of the Zep Tepi, the first time, a mythical golden age when gods walked among humans and civilization was at its peak. Some Egyptologists interpret this as a symbolic account of order emerging from chaos. Others wonder if it could be a dim cultural memory of a pre-dynastic people whose influence shaped the Egypt we know today. If so, the Hall of Records could be a relic from that era, a bridge between the mythical first time and the historical dynasties. Farther afield, similar stories appear in other cultures. In Mesoamerica, The Maya spoke of sacred codices containing the history of the world before the flood. In Mesopotamia, the Sumerians told of antediluvian kings and hidden tablets of destiny. Across the globe, flood myths tell of survivors safeguarding their knowledge for future generations. Could these be separate inventions, or fragments of a shared ancient memory scattered across continents? Some researchers point to similarities in architecture, mathematics, and myth between widely separated ancient cultures as evidence of contact, or at least a shared source. The use of monumental stonework, precise astronomical alignments, and sacred numbers like 72, 360, and 43,200 appear in both the Old World and the New. These could be coincidences, or they could be the fingerprints of a forgotten global network, one that saw the preservation of knowledge as a sacred duty. If such a network existed, the Hall of Records may not be unique. It could be one of several such repositories scattered across the world, each containing the same core records, ensuring that if one was lost, others would survive. This aligns with Edgar Case's claim of 3 halls, one in Egypt, one in Yucatan, and one in the land of the rising sun, yet to be found. Whether taken literally or metaphorically, the concept suggests a deliberate, far-reaching plan to safeguard the wisdom of the ancients. And yet, there is no physical proof. Archaeology demands tangible evidence, inscriptions, tools, datable remains. In the absence of such, the lost civilization theory remains in the realm of speculation. Critics argue that human history is already remarkable enough without invoking vanished supercultures. They caution that the urge to attribute Egypt's achievements to some earlier unknown people risks diminishing the brilliance of the ancient Egyptians themselves. Still, the gaps remain. How did Egypt's first monumental architecture arise so suddenly, without clear precedents? Why do certain engineering techniques seem to appear fully formed? And why do so many of the world's earliest myths speak not of beginnings, but of remembering, of recovering something lost? Perhaps the Hall of Records is not only a physical place, but also a symbol of this deeper mystery. Whether or not it exists beneath the desert, it represents the idea that human knowledge is older, more fragile, and more interconnected than our current history allows. It is the hope that somewhere, carefully hidden, there is a record of who we truly are and where we came from. In the stillness of the desert night, one can almost imagine these forgotten builders, working by torchlight, moving massive stones with techniques now unknown, inscribing symbols meant to speak across ages. They would have known that one day the sands would reclaim their work, but they may also have trusted that someday, perhaps in our own time, the sands would return it to the light. To follow their story forward, we must leave the realm of speculation and step into history's more documented chapters, into the age when the desert's treasures began to be uncovered by explorers, scholars, and treasure hunters. For it was in this era, when curiosity was mingled with ambition, that the modern search for the Hall of Records truly began. The story of the Hall of Records moves now from the mists of prehistory into a period far easier to trace. It is the late 18th century, an age of sails and scientific ambition, when Europe's hunger for exploration is matched only by its appetite for possession. Egypt, with its towering monuments and ancient mysteries, becomes the stage for a new kind of adventure, part scholarship, part conquest, part treasure hunt. The first wave of this fascination arrives not with archaeologists in the modern sense, but with explorers, soldiers, and gentlemen scholars, whose methods are often crude by today's standards. Napoleon Bonaparte's invasion of Egypt in 1798, though a military failure, sets off a chain reaction of curiosity. With him come the savants, scientists, artists, and engineers, who carefully record the country's ruins. Their description de l'Egypte, a monumental catalogue of drawings and studies, brings the wonders of the Nile into European parlors for the first time. These early expeditions have a dual nature. On one hand, they mark the birth of Egyptology as a formal discipline. On the other, they carry the mindset of the treasure hunter, the belief that the past exists to be claimed, its riches transported across oceans to fill the halls of museums or the private cabinets of the wealthy. In this climate, a legend like the Hall of Records finds fertile ground. If such a place exists, its discovery would promise not only historical glory, but unimaginable treasure. The 19th century becomes a golden age of such pursuits. Men like Giovanni Belzoni, an Italian strongman turned explorer, carved their names into Egypt's story, sometimes literally, for Belzoni was known to leave his signature on ancient walls. His methods, by modern standards, were brutal, blasting through stone to reach hidden chambers, hauling colossal statues onto barges, dismantling temples to send artifacts to Europe. Yet his exploits capture the imagination of the public, who read of secret passages and hidden tombs, as if they were tales from Arabian Nights. In this atmosphere of competition and spectacle, rumors of a sealed chamber beneath the sands, a chamber containing the wisdom of the ancients, become irresistible. The Hall of Records fits perfectly into the 19th century mindset, part lost treasure, part key to solving the riddles of human history. But unlike a golden mask or jeweled coffin, it is intangible, invisible, and elusive. To seek it requires not just shovels and dynamite, but conviction, the belief that somewhere the desert hides more than the eye can see. Some treasure hunters claim to have clues: a misplaced inscription, a half-buried foundation, a strange alignment of stones, all become possible signposts to the hidden vault. Others bring more mystical approaches, dowsing rods, spirit communications, or visions inspired by ancient texts. The line between archaeology and adventure story blurs, as scientific curiosity and romantic imagination feed into one another. Not all seekers are driven by greed. Some genuinely wish to preserve what they find, though their means are often destructive. Others see themselves as rescuers of history, taking artifacts from what they consider neglectful lands to display them in what they imagine are safer homes. The morality of such actions, then as now, is complex, for while their work sometimes preserves the past, it also removes it from its context, breaking the delicate web of meaning that connects an object to its place of origin. As the 19th century progresses, the tools of exploration improve, surveying techniques grow more precise. Photography begins to capture monuments in ways sketches never could. The decipherment of the Rosetta Stone by Champollion in 1822 unlocks the ability to read hieroglyphs, giving scholars direct access to the words of the ancients for the first time in centuries. Each discovery fuels the possibility that somewhere in these texts might lie a reference to the Hall of Records, a set of directions, a veiled allusion, or a description of its guardians, and yet no definitive mention appears. The closest hints are often poetic or symbolic references to the House of Life, the Chamber of the Scrolls, or the Sanctuary of Thoth. Some researchers link these to the Hall, suggesting that the ancient scribes intentionally concealed its location behind metaphor. Others dismiss such interpretations as wishful thinking, the product of a romantic age hungry for mystery. Even without hard evidence, the legend continues to grow. Newspapers and travel journals spread stories of secret doors in the Sphinx, of tunnels beneath the Giza Plateau, of explorers who vanish after boasting of their discoveries. Some of these tales are embellishments, others are outright inventions meant to sell copies or secure funding. But each adds another layer to the myth, making the Hall of Records a fixture in the public imagination. By the close of the century, Egypt is no longer merely a destination for the eccentric or the ambitious, it has become an arena for international competition. Britain, France, Germany, and later the United States send expeditions, each hoping to claim the next great find. The pyramids, the temples, and the tombs of the Valley of the Kings yield treasure after treasure. Yet the one chamber that could surpass them all remains hidden. For the dreamers of this age, the Hall of Records is more than a physical location. It is the ultimate prize, proof that there is still magic in the world, still mysteries that cannot be solved with mere industry and science. For the skeptics, it is a mirage, a distraction from real work, a legend that tempts good minds into chasing shadows. But for both, it is a story that will not die. As the sun sets over the Giza plateau, and the silhouettes of the pyramids cut sharp lines against the fading sky, one can imagine the explorers of that era standing where we stand now, gazing out at the desert and wondering what lies beneath. Their footsteps, though long faded, mark the beginning of the modern search, one that will pass from generation to generation, each adding their own chapter to the quest. And so the stage is set for the next act, the 20th century, an age when technology, mysticism, and popular culture will intertwine, turning the Hall of Records from a whispered curiosity into a phenomenon of global fascination. By the turn of the 20th century, the age of the gentleman explorer is fading, replaced by organized expeditions, backed by institutions and wealthy patrons. Archaeology is maturing into a disciplined science. Careful excavation replaces brute force, and scholars speak of preservation, not plunder. Yet even as the methods change, the allure of the Hall of Records refuses to vanish. Instead, it takes on a new form, shaped by an era that blends scientific optimism with a renewed fascination for the mystical. The world is in the grip of spiritualism. Seances, automatic writing, and trance communications captivate the public imagination. In Europe and America, parlors grow dim with candlelight as mediums claim to speak with the dead. The rise of theosophy, with its belief in hidden masters and ancient wisdom, reinforces the idea that truth is not found only in laboratories and libraries, but in altered states of consciousness. Against this backdrop, the Hall of Records becomes more than an archaeological objective, it becomes a spiritual quest. The figure who will most firmly cement the Hall of Records in modern legend is an unlikely one. Edgar Cayce, an American known as the Sleeping Prophet, born in rural Kentucky in 1877, Cayce discovers in his youth that he can enter a trance-like state in which he answers questions posed to him, often on topics far outside his waking knowledge. His readings cover health, philosophy, and occasionally, the deep past. It is in these trance sessions that Cayce speaks of ancient civilizations and the fate of Atlantis. According to Cayce, Atlantis was a highly advanced culture, destroyed around 10,000 BCE in a cataclysm of its own making. Before the final disaster, 3 great repositories of Atlantean knowledge were created, one in Atlantis itself, one in a location yet to be discovered, and one in Egypt, beneath the sands near the Great Sphinx. This Egyptian vault, Cayce claims, is the Hall of Records containing the entire history of the human race from the beginning of time, along with prophecies for the future. In multiple readings, Cayce describes the hall in vivid terms: stone tablets, scrolls, metallic instruments, and devices of unknown purpose. He insists that the chamber is sealed and will be discovered between 1996 and 1998, a date that stirs excitement and speculation for decades to come. To Cayce's followers, these pronouncements are not fanciful, they are instructions from a higher source, a map to a truth deliberately hidden from the unprepared. Cayce's visions electrify a public already hungry for mystery. They weave together threads from earlier centuries, the treasure hunts of the Victorians, the romantic ruins catalogued by Napoleon's savants, and the symbolic references in ancient texts into a single narrative of cosmic significance. The Hall of Records is no longer merely the lost library of an ancient kingdom, it is now a sacred time capsule from a vanished world, guarded until humanity is ready to receive its wisdom. Meanwhile, archaeology marches on. The early 20th century sees great discoveries: the tomb of Tutankhamun in 1922, the unsealing of long-hidden temples, and the first systematic surveys of the Sphinx and the Giza Plateau. Each find inspires fresh theories that the hall might lie just beyond the next stone wall or beneath the next layer of sand. A photograph taken in 1926 of a partially excavated Sphinx enclosure prompts whispers: could the workmen be standing atop a hidden passage? The official reports say nothing of such a thing, but for believers, absence of evidence is not evidence of absence. Some archaeologists quietly entertain the idea of hidden chambers beneath Giza, though most dismiss psychic prophecy as irrelevant to their work. Yet history shows that inspiration often springs from unlikely sources. A dream, a hunch, or a story told by a local guide can nudge an investigator toward a breakthrough. In this sense, the mystics and the scientists share a common trait: both believe there is more to the world than what meets the eye. As the decades pass, the legend adapts to each new cultural moment. In the 1950s and 60s, amid the atomic age and the dawn of the space race, the Hall is imagined as containing advanced technology, perhaps machines that could alter the course of civilization, or records left by beings from beyond Earth. In the 1970s and 80s, as New Age spirituality blooms, it is cast as a center of planetary healing, a place where lost wisdom could restore balance to a troubled world. Books, television specials, and conferences keep the Hall of Records in the public eye, often pairing it with the mysteries of the pyramids, the riddle of the Sphinx, and the fate of Atlantis. Not all the attention is benign. The blending of archaeological speculation with mystical prophecy invites controversy. Skeptics point out that no reputable excavation has uncovered anything like Case's vault. They warn that chasing legends risks wasting resources and damaging fragile sites. Yet their caution rarely diminishes popular fascination. For many, the lack of proof is part of the appeal. The Hall of Records is a mystery precisely because it has not yet been found. By the late 20th century, technology begins to offer new possibilities. Ground-penetrating radar and seismic surveys can detect anomalies beneath the surface without disturbing the site. In the 1990s, a series of such surveys near the Sphinx reveals voids and irregularities in the bedrock. Some researchers suggest these could be natural cavities, others insist they might be chambers. The timing is tantalizing. Case's predicted discovery window is approaching. The Egyptian authorities respond cautiously, permitting some studies but guarding the Sphinx closely. Official statements downplay the findings, attributing them to natural erosion or ancient construction unrelated to any fabled hall. This reticence fuels suspicion among believers, who claim that the truth is being withheld until the world is ready, or until the powers that be decide it can be revealed without upheaval. In this way, the Hall of Records remains suspended between worlds, the world of physical evidence and the world of visionary insight. It exists in scholarly journals and in trance readings, in dusty excavation reports and in candlelit seance rooms. Its image shifts with the age, reflecting the hopes and fears of each generation. For the mystics, the Hall is a promise, a beacon of hidden truth, waiting to emerge. For the skeptics, it is a cautionary tale about the persistence of myth in the modern era. For the dreamers, it is an open invitation to wonder, and perhaps that is why it endures, because in seeking it, we are also seeking the part of ourselves that believes the past still holds secrets worth finding. As the 20th century draws to a close, the predicted years of Case's revelation pass without a confirmed discovery. Some followers adjust the timeline, suggesting that the prophecy referred not to the physical unsealing of the hall, but to a shift in human consciousness, a symbolic unlocking of knowledge. Others maintain that the vault has been found but kept hidden for reasons beyond public understanding. What is certain is that the legend, far from fading, grows stronger in the new millennium. With the rise of the internet, theories and images spread instantly across the globe. Drone footage of Giza, leaked radar scans, and speculative documentaries keep the Hall of Records alive in the collective imagination. And somewhere, beneath the shifting sands and the unblinking gaze of the Sphinx, the question remains: if such a place exists, who will find it, and what will it reveal? The Great Sphinx of Giza has watched the desert sands shift for thousands of years, its face weathered, its gaze unblinking, its presence both monumental and mysterious. Measuring 73 meters in length, and carved directly from the limestone bedrock, the Sphinx is a marvel of ancient engineering and artistry. To the ancient Egyptians, it was likely a symbol of divine kingship, the fusion of human intellect and the strength of the lion. But to seekers of the Hall of Records, it is something more, a sentinel guarding the threshold to forgotten knowledge. For as long as the legend has circulated, whispers have tied the hall's location to this colossal guardian. Ancient inscriptions do not directly mention a hidden library beneath the Sphinx, yet fragments of myth, symbolic interpretations, and the peculiarities of its structure have fueled speculation for centuries. The very idea is irresistibly poetic, that the Sphinx, the most enigmatic monument of the ancient world, might literally sit atop humanity's most important archive. The association gained momentum in the modern era with the readings of Edgar Cayce, who claimed that one of the Atlantean repositories lay in a chamber between the paws of the Sphinx. His descriptions were detailed enough to spark decades of amateur and professional searches. If the hall existed, Cayce said, it would be found in a sealed stone vault containing not only the history of Atlantis, but the complete record of human civilization from its beginnings. Archaeologists, while skeptical of psychic prophecy, have long been intrigued by the Sphinx's peculiar geology. Unlike the pyramids, which were built stone by stone, the Sphinx was carved from a single outcrop of rock. This method left natural fissures and cavities within the structure, some of which were filled or reinforced in antiquity. The idea that some of these voids might be deliberate chambers, whether for storage, ceremonial purposes, or as a symbolic tomb, has not been entirely dismissed. In the early 20th century, French engineer Émile Barrès conducted a restoration project on the Sphinx that involved extensive clearing of sand and exploration of its foundations. While his official reports focused on the preservation work, later accounts suggest that tunnels and openings were found, though whether they were natural, functional, or merely ancient construction features remains a matter of debate. By the 1990s, advances in non-invasive technology provided new ways to peer beneath the Giza Plateau. Ground-penetrating radar and seismic surveys conducted by teams from both Egypt and abroad revealed anomalies in the bedrock under and around the Sphinx. One study suggested the presence of rectangular-shaped cavities beneath the front paws and extending toward the rear of the monument. The data was compelling enough to spark media interest, but Egyptian authorities maintained that these features were natural or unrelated to any legendary vault. For believers, this was exactly the kind of answer they expected, cautious, perhaps deliberately evasive. In their view, the Sphinx's guardianship is not just physical but political, with the truth hidden until the right time or the right people come along to reveal it. In this reading of events, the Egyptian government, archaeologists, and possibly even global powers have a stake in controlling the narrative of what lies beneath. The Sphinx's sheer age adds further intrigue. Mainstream Egyptology dates it to around 2500 BCE during the reign of Pharaoh Khafra, whose pyramid stands nearby. However, some researchers, notably geologist Robert Schoch, have argued that the weathering patterns on its body indicate prolonged exposure to heavy rainfall, which would place its original carving thousands of years earlier in a wetter climatic period. If true, this would not only rewrite the history of Egyptian civilization but also place the Sphinx's creation in a timeframe closer to Cayce's proposed Atlantean era. The possibility that the Sphinx predates the pyramids fits neatly with the idea that it could guard something older still, a vault from a civilization lost to time. Proponents imagine sealed passageways, extending deep into the bedrock, their entrances hidden beneath centuries of stone and restoration. Some even suggest that clues to the hall's location are encoded in the proportions of the Sphinx's body, the alignment of nearby monuments, or the arrangement of subterranean tunnels beneath the Giza Plateau. Legends aside, the area around the Sphinx is known to contain a complex network of ancient structures. Just west of the monument lies the so-called Sphinx Temple, built from massive limestone blocks quarried during the carving of the Sphinx itself. Beneath the plateau, archaeologists have documented ancient tombs, boat pits, and shafts that descend into the bedrock. None of these so far have yielded anything resembling the Hall of Records, but they serve as a reminder that much of Giza's subterranean world remains unexplored. In recent decades, tighter restrictions on excavation near the Sphinx have only deepened the mystery. Official explanations cite the need to protect the monument from damage, as its limestone body has suffered from erosion, pollution, and previous restoration missteps. Unofficially, This has fueled speculation that ongoing discoveries are being withheld from public view. Occasional photographs of closed-off entrances or reports of secret excavations circulate online, each adding a new layer to the legend. The Sphinx, for all its grandeur, keeps its secrets well. Whether those secrets are geological curiosities or the entrance to a fabled repository depends largely on what one chooses to believe. For some, the evidence is circumstantial but compelling: the anomalies in the bedrock, the historical accounts of tunnels, the ancient association of the Sphinx with guardianship. For others, it is a testament to the human tendency to project myths onto monuments we do not fully understand. And yet, the image remains powerful: a silent, ageless guardian staring east toward the rising sun, as if awaiting the moment when the sands will shift and the entrance it guards will be revealed. The idea is as much about what it represents as what might physically lie beneath, a hope that the past holds truths capable of transforming the present. Whether the Hall of Records lies under the Sphinx, deep within the plateau, or only in the imagination, its connection to this monument ensures that the legend will endure. The Sphinx is more than stone. It is a canvas for the stories we tell about ourselves, our origins, and the possibility that somewhere hidden in the earth, the answers we seek are waiting. The Egyptian desert has long been a place of both revelation and concealment. The sands preserve as much as they obscure, swallowing monuments, tombs, and even entire settlements, until they are rediscovered centuries later. For those searching for the Hall of Records, the land beneath the sands is more than just geology. It is a labyrinth of history, mystery, and the occasional discovery that refuses to fit neatly into the accepted timeline. In the late 19th century, the rapid expansion of archaeological digs in Giza and the surrounding necropolises brought to light anomalies that sparked whispers among workers and scholars alike. In some cases, these were objects that seemed out of place. In others, they were entire structures buried deep below the known city of the dead. While official publications tended to emphasize the more conventional finds, statues, pottery, sarcophagi, rumors persisted of far older chambers carved with symbols that didn't match known dynasties. One of the most tantalizing of these accounts comes from 1925, when workers repairing a road near the Giza Plateau reportedly uncovered a shaft leading to a series of sealed rooms. According to a foreman's private notes, the walls bore inscriptions unlike standard hieroglyphics, etched with geometric precision and unusual symmetry. The chambers, if they existed, were swiftly sealed again under orders from authorities. No official record of the discovery survives, but the story has been passed down in hushed tones among local families whose ancestors worked at the site. The mid-20th century brought another wave of intrigue. In 1944, during a particularly intense sandstorm, portions of the plateau's surface shifted enough to reveal what appeared to be a rectangular stone entrance. Witnesses described it as smooth, polished limestone, markedly different from the weathered blocks of nearby tombs. Some claim to have glimpsed steps descending into the earth before the sands reclaimed the opening within days. Whether this was the entrance to an unknown tomb, a storage chamber, or something more extraordinary remains unknown. No official excavation was documented. The most persistent claims, however, involve discoveries made not in open desert, but beneath the floors of existing temples and monuments. In 1987, a team restoring a small temple near Saqqara reportedly stumbled upon a narrow tunnel concealed beneath a flagstone. The passage, barely large enough for a person to crawl through, descended at a steep angle before splitting into two directions. While one branch ended abruptly in collapsed rubble, the other led to a chamber containing an assortment of stone boxes, their lids sealed with a resinous substance. The boxes were never opened in the presence of the restoration crew. They were removed under official supervision and transported to an undisclosed location. To this day, no public inventory of the items has been released. Modern technology has only added to the mystery. In 1999, satellite imaging and ground-penetrating radar were used in a joint Egyptian-foreign research project to map underground anomalies across several archaeological zones. Among the most notable findings were large, symmetrical cavities beneath the sand west of the Great Pyramid. Some were circular, others rectangular, and their precise geometry stood out from the irregularities caused by natural formations. When news of these anomalies leaked, speculation ran wild. Could these be the long-buried vaults spoken of in ancient myths? Within months, the official project report was released, but the anomalies were attributed to natural voids and fissures. Critics noted that no detailed imaging of the most symmetrical shapes was included in the public release. Perhaps the most sensational and most controversial of all stories involves the so-called Lost Complex beneath the sands of Bahariya Oasis, deep in the western desert. In 2002, a group of explorers claimed to have found the eroded entrance to what they described as a massive, stone-lined corridor extending into darkness for more than 200 meters. They reported columns carved with unknown symbols and a vaulted ceiling far larger than typical burial chambers. But their expedition was cut short when a section of the ceiling collapsed, forcing them to retreat. Upon their return, they found the entrance completely filled in, either by a natural landslide or deliberate intervention. Attempts to relocate the site in subsequent years have failed. To many, these accounts are tantalizing fragments of a larger picture, a picture suggesting that Egypt's sands conceal far more than the historical record admits. But even confirmed archaeological finds can feed into the legend of the Hall of Records. Take, for instance, the discovery of the Osiris shaft beneath the Giza Plateau in 1999. While officially described as a multi-level tomb or symbolic burial site for the god Osiris, the shaft descends through 3 levels of chambers, the lowest of which contains a stone sarcophagus surrounded by water. The sheer depth and unusual construction have led some to believe it was part of a much larger subterranean network. Could such networks connect to other sealed vaults, perhaps containing ancient records? The idea remains speculative, but the possibility fuels ongoing fascination. What makes these discoveries, real, rumored, or somewhere in between, so compelling is their common thread: the suggestion of great age and deliberate concealment. Whether it is a shaft that appears suddenly in the desert, a tunnel beneath a temple, or an anomaly detected by modern instruments, the sense is always the same, that these features were not meant to be found casually. They were built, sealed, and buried with intention. The desert itself plays an active role in maintaining these secrets. Its shifting sands can hide entrances overnight, while the sheer vastness of Egypt's unexcavated terrain ensures that countless sites remain undiscovered. This interplay of concealment and revelation has defined Egyptian archaeology for over 2 centuries, and it is why so many believe that the Hall of Records, if it exists, could remain hidden even in the shadow of the most studied monuments on Earth. The challenge lies not only in finding such a place, but in proving it exists once found. Without official excavation and documentation, even the most dramatic claims remain stories. And in Egypt, where archaeology is tightly regulated and national heritage fiercely guarded, access to potential sites is as much a matter of politics as of science. This reality fuels speculation that certain discoveries may have already been made and quietly locked away from public knowledge. If there is truth to the legend, then the Hall of Records may not be a single chamber beneath a famous monument, but a series of repositories scattered across Egypt, each concealed in its own way. The Sphinx might guard one, the Osiris shaft another, the Bahariya Oasis a third. Together they would form a hidden network of humanity's earliest history, waiting for the day they will be revealed. For now, the unexplained discoveries beneath the sands stand as signposts pointing toward that possibility. Each shaft, tunnel, or anomaly is a reminder that Egypt's story is far from fully told, and that the desert may still hold the keys to a chapter of human history we have yet to read. The legend of the Hall of Records is not only a product of modern imagination, its roots extend deep into the texts and prophecies of ancient Egypt itself. While no document names a Hall of Records explicitly, there are references scattered across hieroglyphics, papyri, and temple inscriptions that hint at the existence of secret chambers, sacred libraries, and repositories of divine knowledge. To those who study these ancient writings, The hall is more than myth. It is a possibility encoded in the very fabric of Egypt's literary and spiritual heritage. One of the most intriguing sources is the so-called pyramid texts, carved on the walls of pyramids belonging to pharaohs of the Old Kingdom. These texts, dating back as far as 2400 BCE, describe the pharaoh's journey into the afterlife and his quest to merge with the gods. Embedded in these writings are references to houses of life, centers of learning, where priests preserved sacred knowledge and maintained records of celestial events, divine laws, and earthly history. Some scholars interpret these as mundane archives. Others speculate that the texts describe repositories of a far greater scale, containing knowledge from before Egypt itself. The Temple of Thoth, dedicated to the Egyptian god of wisdom, provides another possible clue. Thoth was credited with the invention of writing, the keeping of time, and the recording of the deeds of gods and men. Within temple inscriptions, Thoth is often portrayed as a guardian of hidden wisdom, a figure who ensures that knowledge is preserved but only revealed to those deemed worthy. Followers of the Hall of Records legend see this as symbolic confirmation that a vault of ancient truths exists, intentionally sealed and protected by divine decree. Other texts, such as the Book of the Dead, while primarily concerned with the journey of the soul, contain references to sacred gates, hidden chambers, and encrypted instructions meant to guide initiates through darkness. Though these are spiritual in nature, many theorists suggest that such passages may also hint at physical locations where knowledge was concealed. The symbolism is layered. A chamber might represent the soul, the mind, or a literal subterranean library. In this duality lies the enduring fascination. Each reading offers both literal and metaphorical paths to understanding. The legend extends beyond Egypt. In Mesopotamia, the Sumerians spoke of antediluvian kings and tablets containing the history of humanity before the Great Flood. The Akkadian and Babylonian records reference hidden archives where divine wisdom was stored, accessible only to those who could interpret complex cuneiform codes. When compared to Egyptian traditions, a pattern emerges across cultures. There is a consistent emphasis on preserving knowledge in secrecy, often underground or in protected sanctuaries. This raises the tantalizing possibility that the Hall of Records is not just a local Egyptian myth, but part of a global memory of lost civilizations. Prophecies, too, contribute to the mystique. Edgar Cayce, as explored in previous sections, claimed that the Hall of Records contained a complete history of humanity, including the lost civilization of Atlantis, and would eventually be discovered when humanity was ready. But even before Cayce, there are cryptic writings in Egypt that suggest knowledge could re-emerge at pivotal times. Certain temple inscriptions warn of the return of hidden wisdom when the stars align, or when the children of men seek the truth with a pure heart. While open to interpretation, these statements provide fertile ground for the imagination, linking the discovery of knowledge to moral and spiritual readiness rather than mere excavation. The Cairo Museum papyri contain additional hints. Fragmentary records, often overlooked, mention repositories beneath the watchful lion, a phrase some researchers take as a veiled reference to the Sphinx. These documents, written in cursive hieratic script, describe rituals and offerings designed to protect hidden spaces from intrusion. Scholars debate whether these passages refer to practical measures, tomb security, storage of sacred scrolls, or whether they hint at a much larger and more mysterious archive. Even in Greek and Roman texts, echoes of the legend appear. Historians like Herodotus and Diodorus Siculus recorded stories told by Egyptian priests of ancient vaults containing wisdom that predated the pharaohs themselves. While the accounts are often vague and colored by myth, they lend historical weight to the idea that some form of the Hall of Records was already a topic of conversation millennia ago. The continuity of these stories across centuries adds a sense of inevitability, as if the hall has always existed in the periphery of human consciousness, waiting for discovery. Some researchers delve into the numerology and geometry encoded in texts, noting that certain symbols, dates, and measurements correspond to astronomical events. Celestial alignment was central to Egyptian thinking. The positioning of temples, pyramids, and sacred spaces often mirrored the stars. If the Hall of Records exists, its placement may have been deliberately coordinated with cosmic cycles, a design ensuring that it would remain hidden until both the sands and the stars permitted revelation. The duality of literal and symbolic interpretation is central to the hall's enduring allure. On one hand, the texts suggest that a physical space containing preserved wisdom is possible. On the other, they emphasize secrecy, morality, and readiness, implying that discovery is as much an inward journey as an outward one. The legend thrives in this tension, keeping the hall simultaneously within reach and beyond understanding, both real and allegorical. In modern scholarship, there is a growing awareness that Egypt's early scribes may have encoded knowledge in ways we have yet to fully comprehend. Hieroglyphics themselves are a fusion of language, symbol, and art, capable of communicating multiple layers of meaning at once. Some inscriptions, when examined in conjunction with temple layouts, astronomical alignments, and oral traditions, suggest a deliberate effort to safeguard knowledge across generations. The Hall of Records, in this light, becomes not just a hidden library, but a multidimensional archive, one written in stone, symbol, and story. The power of the texts lies not only in what they reveal, but also in what they withhold. Gaps, ambiguities, and inconsistencies in the ancient records may be intentional, creating a protective veil over the knowledge they preserve. Each fragment of writing, each reference to a hidden house or a sealed chamber, carries layers of meaning that can be unpacked but never fully resolved. The mystery itself is the lesson. Human history is complex, layered, and often intentionally obscured to safeguard its most vital truths. For seekers of the Hall of Records, these texts serve as both map and compass. They provide orientation, hints, and context, guiding exploration while reinforcing the idea that the search is not only about finding a physical chamber but also about understanding the ancient mind. In studying the inscriptions, the prophecies, and the symbolic references, the hall exists as both a goal and a mirror, reflecting the enduring human desire to preserve knowledge, to understand origins, and to bridge the gap between myth and history. The interplay between tangible archaeology and textual interpretation ensures that the Hall of Records will remain a compelling subject for generations. Each newly deciphered inscription, each re-evaluation of temple layouts, and each reinterpretation of hieratic texts adds another thread to the narrative. Together, they create a tapestry of possibility, where fact and legend intertwine, and where the promise of discovery is never extinguished. Whether or not a physical chamber lies beneath the sands, the ancient texts and prophecies keep the hall alive in human imagination. They remind us that knowledge can be protected across millennia, that secrets can endure in plain sight, and that the mysteries of the past are often as much about understanding ourselves as about unearthing the past. As the 20th century progressed, the quest for the Hall of Records evolved alongside the tools and methods of modern archaeology. Where explorers once relied on intuition, brute strength, and a measure of luck, the contemporary seeker can now call upon technology capable of probing beneath the earth without disturbing a single stone. Ground-penetrating radar, magnetometry, seismic imaging, and satellite surveys have opened new possibilities, transforming Egypt into a laboratory where legend and science intersect. One of the earliest notable modern searches took place in the 1980s, when radar scans of the Giza Plateau detected anomalies beneath the Sphinx and the surrounding pyramids. Small rectangular voids appeared on the scans, some aligned symmetrically, others at angles that suggested human construction rather than natural formation. The initial findings were met with skepticism from mainstream archaeologists, who argued that natural fissures, erosion patterns, or construction voids could easily account for the results. Still, the scans reignited interest in the legend of the Hall, drawing both scientific and speculative attention. The 1990s saw a more methodical approach. International teams, combining geophysics, archaeology, and historical research, began collaborative surveys aimed at mapping the subterranean landscape of Giza. Their goal was not merely treasure hunting, but understanding the plateau's hidden structure, including its ancient quarries, tombs, and possible ceremonial chambers. Yet despite rigorous methodology, every anomaly discovered was cloaked in uncertainty. Rectangular cavities could be storage spaces or tombs. Circular voids might be natural formations or remnants of ancient construction. The Hall of Records remained elusive, appearing only in theoretical models and careful speculation. In the early 2000s, a notable project employed a combination of satellite imagery and aerial lidar scans to detect subtle surface irregularities that could indicate subsurface structures. Shadows cast at low sun angles, variations in vegetation growth, and slight elevation changes were analyzed, revealing previously unrecorded depressions and linear features across the plateau. Many of these anomalies correlated with ancient roads, foundations, and ritual paths, suggesting a highly organized layout. Among the researchers, the tantalizing possibility persisted that some features might mark hidden chambers, perhaps even repositories of knowledge long concealed. Technological exploration extended beyond the Giza Plateau to other regions of Egypt traditionally associated with ancient wisdom. The Western Desert, Bahariya Oasis, and the necropolis at Saqqara all became targets for non-invasive studies. Ground-penetrating radar and magnetometry revealed long narrow tunnels, large cavities, and unexpected voids beneath the desert floor. Some of these sites aligned with ancient legends, while others were entirely new, seemingly lost to the historical record. Yet, in every case, the interpretation remained tentative. The desert's geology and the passage of millennia make definitive identification challenging. The integration of technology with historical scholarship added a new layer to the search. Researchers cross-referenced anomalies with ancient texts, temple inscriptions, and geometric alignments to determine whether a discovered void might hold symbolic significance. Some voids matched descriptions in the pyramid texts or corresponded with the mythical references to sacred houses of life. Others appeared entirely coincidental. For every discovery, a careful balance had to be maintained between scientific caution and the imaginative drive that fuels the Hall of Records legend. Public fascination grew in parallel with these technological advances. Documentaries, books, and online forums disseminated images of radar scans, maps of tunnels, and photos of unexplained entrances. Each new finding, no matter how tentative, was presented as potential evidence of the Hall of Records, blending empirical data with narrative speculation. This exposure further entwined science and legend, creating a cultural feedback loop where curiosity, skepticism, and wonder all reinforced one another. Some expeditions have been controversial. In 2000, a team conducting seismic tests near the Sphinx faced criticism for potentially destabilizing portions of the surrounding plateau. Local authorities were concerned about erosion and the preservation of the monument, highlighting a key tension in modern exploration: the desire to uncover hidden truths versus the responsibility to protect irreplaceable heritage. These constraints mean that even with technology, much of the Giza Plateau remains largely unexplored, its full subterranean story still beyond reach. Despite these limitations, modern efforts have produced tantalizing hints that the Hall, or at least previously unknown chambers, might exist. For example, in 2001, radar scans beneath the Sphinx's pores revealed rectangular cavities extending northward. The void's size and symmetry suggested human engineering, yet no excavation was permitted. Similarly, anomalies beneath the plateau's western sector hinted at corridors and chambers connected to ancient tombs, some appearing far larger than standard burial complexes. Each discovery fuels debate: are these features mundane, or part of a hidden network preserving humanity's earliest knowledge? The fusion of technology and legend has also inspired creative experimentation. Virtual modeling allows researchers to reconstruct the plateau's subsurface digitally, simulating how ancient builders might have designed tunnels or chambers. Combined with laser scanning of monuments and high-resolution satellite imagery, these models provide a virtual map that could, in theory, guide future exploration. Though speculative, such efforts illustrate the blending of imagination, science, and legend that has characterized the search for the Hall for over 2 centuries. Interestingly, even the most skeptical archaeologists acknowledge that the Giza Plateau holds surprises. Despite over a century of excavation, new discoveries continue to emerge: uncharted shafts, hidden walls, and anomalies previously overlooked. The desert itself is dynamic. Wind, sand, and shifting ground conceal and reveal sites unpredictably. This constant movement mirrors the duality at the heart of the Hall of Records legend: the known and the unknown, the seen and the hidden, fact and myth. The technological age has transformed the search, but it has not diminished its mystery. If anything, the new tools have deepened it. Each radar scan, satellite image, and seismic reading offers a glimpse beneath the surface, yet the ultimate prize remains elusive. For some, the Hall of Records is a literal chamber waiting to be opened. For others, it is a metaphor for the accumulation of knowledge, obscured until the right moment of discovery. In either case, the legend persists, alive in the interplay between human curiosity, modern science, and the ancient desert that has kept its secrets for millennia. Thus modern expeditions continue, quietly, meticulously balancing hope and caution. From remote sensing to underground surveys, the pursuit of hidden knowledge blends the precision of technology with the romance of legend. The Hall of Records remains unseen, yet every anomaly, every faint signature beneath the sands keeps the dream alive, a reminder that some mysteries endure not because they cannot be solved, but because they inspire generations to keep searching. The legend of the Hall of Records has always been intertwined with the tantalizing idea of lost civilizations, societies so advanced that their knowledge could rival or even surpass our modern understanding. Throughout history, explorers, scholars, and mystics alike have speculated that humanity's earliest chapters are missing, deliberately obscured or erased by natural disasters, wars, or the passage of time. The desert sands of Egypt, seemingly barren and timeless, provide the perfect canvas for imagining what might lie hidden, a memory of civilizations whose footprints have almost entirely vanished. Atlantis is, of course, the most famous of these lost civilizations. The story originates in the dialogues of Plato, who describes an island empire of immense power and knowledge, swallowed by the sea in a single cataclysm. While many dismiss Atlantis as allegory, others see in it echoes of forgotten cultures, warning of a time when human hubris could destroy even the most advanced societies. Case's readings explicitly link Atlantis to the Hall of Records, suggesting that its knowledge survived the catastrophe and was transported, in part, to Egypt, where it became encoded in monuments and possibly hidden beneath the sands for safekeeping. Beyond Atlantis, theorists propose the existence of pre-dynastic civilizations in Africa, India, and the Americas, whose achievements were erased or lost over millennia. The discovery of highly sophisticated megalithic structures, precise astronomical alignments, and advanced engineering techniques long before recorded history challenges the conventional timeline. For example, the pyramids themselves demonstrate engineering knowledge that seems disproportionate to the resources and technology assumed to be available at the time. Some researchers argue that these achievements are remnants of a forgotten wisdom, a knowledge system carefully safeguarded and passed down in secret, perhaps culminating in repositories like the Hall of Records. Geologists and archaeologists have noted that global cataclysms could account for lost civilizations. Massive flooding, tectonic shifts, and climate changes would have destroyed cities, buried records, and erased visible traces. Evidence of such upheavals appears in the stratigraphy of coastal regions, submerged ruins off the coasts of continents, and abrupt changes in sediment layers. Proponents of lost civilization theories argue that these events correspond with the legends of civilizations predating recorded history, suggesting that the Hall of Records could contain accounts of these vanished societies, their innovations, and their warnings for future generations. The concept of hidden wisdom extends beyond material achievements. Ancient texts, mythologies, and esoteric teachings suggest that some knowledge was considered too dangerous or sacred to be revealed openly. This wisdom could include mathematics, cosmology, medicine, or even methods of manipulating energy in ways that modern science has yet to comprehend. By this reasoning, the Hall of Records was not merely a library, but a vault containing the distilled intelligence of entire civilizations, preserved to guide humanity when it was deemed ready to receive it. Many researchers focus on Egypt as a potential nexus of this hidden knowledge, in part because of the continuity and complexity of its culture. The temples, pyramids, and monuments are often aligned with celestial phenomena, suggesting a sophisticated understanding of astronomy and the cosmos. Some theorists posit that the Egyptians inherited knowledge from earlier, now lost societies, and that the construction of massive repositories, like the Hall of Records, was a way to ensure its survival across millennia. Even the meticulous recording of rituals, hieroglyphs, and symbolic art can be seen as a form of encoded instruction, a system of transmitting wisdom that is resistant to loss. Alternative theories extend beyond human civilizations. Some esoteric interpretations propose that certain knowledge was imparted by non-human intelligence, gods, extraterrestrials, or interdimensional beings who sought to guide humanity. In this context, the Hall of Records is more than a human archive. It is a bridge between ordinary experience and cosmic understanding, a repository of insights that might transform the way we perceive reality itself. While controversial and widely debated, these ideas persist because they offer a coherent explanation for the apparent anachronisms in ancient engineering, astronomy, and mathematics. The distribution of megalithic sites across the globe further fuels speculation. Sites such as Göbekli Tepe in Turkey, the megalithic structures of Malta, and the stone circles of Britain predate conventional history, suggesting that complex societies existed far earlier than previously thought. The precision and scale of these constructions imply knowledge of geometry, astronomy, and engineering that challenges the accepted narrative. Proponents argue that the Hall of Records could hold documentation of these societies' accomplishments, perhaps even connecting them in ways that modern archaeology has yet to recognize. In addition to physical construction, scholars consider the symbolic and ritualistic elements of ancient sites. Patterns of alignment, recurring motifs in art, and encoded numerology all point to a systematic effort to preserve knowledge across generations. These features, often overlooked or dismissed as decorative, may represent a sophisticated mnemonic system. From this perspective, the Hall of Records is not only a literal repository, but part of a global network of symbolic knowledge, a universal language of wisdom embedded in stone, text, and ritual. The mystery deepens when one considers the cultural memory of lost civilizations. Myths, legends, and oral traditions often contain kernels of truth about past societies, recorded metaphorically to protect the information from being misused. Stories of sunken cities, advanced beings, and hidden treasures may encode real historical events displaced through the lens of myth. In this view, the Hall of Records is a culmination of these stories, a physical manifestation of knowledge preserved from a time when memory alone could not survive the ravages of disaster and neglect. Skeptics caution against over-reliance on speculation. They note that extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence and emphasize that the majority of purported lost civilizations remain unproven. However, Even cautious scholars admit that the gaps in the historical record are real. The absence of evidence does not preclude the existence of sophisticated societies that predate known history, nor does it eliminate the possibility that their knowledge was systematically preserved in hidden repositories, awaiting rediscovery. Ultimately, the theories of lost civilizations and hidden wisdom highlight a central tension that defines the legend of the Hall of Records: the known versus the unknown, the tangible versus the intangible. Whether one approaches the hall as a literal chamber, a symbolic construct, or a combination of both, it represents humanity's quest to understand its origins, preserve its knowledge, and uncover truths that transcend ordinary perception. The desert, the monuments, and the sands themselves become participants in this story, concealing secrets while inviting exploration. The allure is timeless. Each new discovery of ancient ruins, each reinterpretation of texts, and each advancement in technology reinvigorates the search. Theories of lost civilizations offer both context and hope that there is something more, something older, and something wiser hidden beneath the earth. And if the Hall of Records exists, it would be the ultimate repository, a testament to human ingenuity, cosmic awareness, and the enduring desire to connect with the past. Through this lens, the Hall of Records is less a singular goal than a journey, a call to uncover hidden truths, interpret ancient wisdom, and explore the space where myth and history intertwine. Theories of lost civilizations provide both the map and the motivation, suggesting that what lies beneath the sands is not simply stone and dust, but the accumulated knowledge of worlds we may never fully comprehend. The legend of the Hall of Records carries with it the persistent idea that it is guarded, not merely by physical barriers, but by forces both human and symbolic. Throughout history, civilizations have sought to protect what they deem sacred, using architecture, ritual, and secrecy to preserve knowledge from those considered unworthy. In Egypt, where monuments were constructed on massive scales and hidden chambers were carved into the bedrock, the question naturally arises: who or what serves as guardian of the hall, and what measures ensure its continued concealment? Ancient texts provide tantalizing clues. Temple inscriptions, ceremonial manuals, and pyramid carvings often speak of keepers of the wisdom, priests who were entrusted with the responsibility of maintaining sacred knowledge. These guardians were not merely scholars, they were intermediaries between the divine and human realms, charged with determining when information should be revealed, and to whom. The very existence of this priestly class hints at a culture of controlled access, where knowledge was preserved in secrecy to prevent misuse or misunderstanding. Beyond human custodians, some legends suggest that natural and architectural defenses were deliberately engineered to protect the hall. Massive stones, intricate passageways, and carefully calculated alignments may have served dual purposes: ceremonial significance and practical deterrence. Consider the pyramids themselves, where burial chambers are accessible only through narrow shafts and hidden corridors. In a similar fashion, the Hall of Records, if it exists, may be hidden beneath layers of rock, sand, and structural complexity, designed to challenge discovery for millennia. The desert, too, functions as a guardian. Its shifting sands, extreme temperatures, and vast expanse create a natural barrier, concealing entrances and eroding exposed surfaces. Seasonal storms can bury a newly discovered site in hours, while the immense scale of unexcavated terrain ensures that even the most meticulous searches may miss critical locations. This environmental defense, combined with human foresight, enhances the mythos of a hall carefully protected from the curious and the unprepared. Modern speculation has introduced another layer of guardianship, that of secrecy maintained by contemporary authorities. Egypt has historically regulated archaeological excavation with strict oversight, limiting access to sensitive areas. While preservation is the stated purpose, some theorists suggest that certain discoveries may have been withheld to protect national heritage, prevent looting, or manage public perception. Whether these actions are motivated by caution or conspiracy, they contribute to the perception that the Hall of Records is not only physically guarded, but deliberately hidden from public knowledge. Stories of hidden traps, sealed doors, and encoded messages abound in both historical texts and modern accounts. According to some researchers, the ancients may have employed methods to mislead potential intruders, from false chambers to misleading inscriptions. Such precautions would not be unprecedented. Tombs of pharaohs were often surrounded by decoy passages and curses, designed to protect the deceased and their treasures. By analogy, the Hall of Records could be shielded with similar ingenuity, blending engineering, symbolism, and strategy into an invisible defense system. Speculation extends even further into the realm of the mystical. Some theorists propose that protective measures may not be purely physical but metaphysical, spiritual, or energetic safeguards, encoded into the very structure of the monument, the geometry of the chambers, or the alignment with celestial events. While unprovable in conventional terms, these ideas reinforce the sense of awe and respect surrounding the hall. If such protections exist, the challenge of discovery becomes as much about perception and preparedness as it is about excavation. Historical precedents support the plausibility of such secrecy. Throughout antiquity, knowledge deemed sacred or dangerous was often concealed. Libraries were locked, scrolls were encoded, and initiation rites determined who could access wisdom. In the context of Egypt, a culture deeply invested in ritual, cosmology, and hierarchical order, the deliberate protection of a Hall of Records fits a recognizable pattern. The combination of secrecy, ceremonial sanctity, and environmental concealment forms a multi-layered defense that could persist for thousands of years. Speculative narratives also propose that some guardians may have left intentional clues, symbols, alignments, or architectural hints, designed to be deciphered only by those with the proper understanding. The placement of the Sphinx, the layout of the pyramids, and references in temple inscriptions could all be part of a coded system, leading to hidden knowledge. In this view, the guardianship is not merely restrictive but instructional. The hall reveals itself only to the prepared mind, combining moral, intellectual, and observational readiness. Yet the balance between myth and evidence is delicate. While stories of hidden guardians, traps, and mystical protections enrich the narrative, they remain largely speculative. Archaeologists emphasize the need for empirical verification, careful documentation, and scientific rigor. Nevertheless, the persistence of these ideas across cultures and centuries underscores a universal human instinct to protect what is valuable and ensure its survival against the ravages of time, natural forces, and human folly. In combining ancient intention with modern speculation, a vivid picture emerges. The Hall of Records, if it exists, may be shielded by multiple layers: priests and ritual custodians of the past, monumental architecture designed to confuse or deter, natural barriers imposed by geology and climate, and modern oversight limiting access. Together, these guardians transform the search for the hall from a simple archaeological endeavor into a profound exploration of secrecy, intention, and endurance. Finally, the very act of speculation serves as a form of guardianship in itself. By inspiring careful observation, reverence, and analytical inquiry, the legend encourages seekers to approach discovery with patience and respect. The hall, if real, is thus protected not only by stone and sand, but by human imagination, curiosity, and the shared recognition that some knowledge deserves both preservation and ethical pursuit. Through centuries of storytelling, research, and technological exploration, the theme is clear: guardianship is both literal and symbolic. It underscores the challenge of unearthing something truly extraordinary, while reminding us that the mystery itself, the sense of wonder, caution, and potential, is as significant as the discovery. The Hall of Records, whether hidden beneath the sands or preserved in story and imagination, endures as a monument to human curiosity, the instinct to safeguard knowledge, and the timeless allure of secrets waiting to be revealed. The quest for the Hall of Records has never truly ended. Even in the 21st century, with satellites orbiting above and ground-penetrating radar scanning beneath the surface, the search continues, a delicate dance between technology, history, and the enduring pull of mystery. Modern archaeologists, researchers, and independent explorers approach the desert with a combination of scientific rigor and the cautious respect inspired by centuries of legend. Every anomaly, every unexcavated tunnel, and every textual reference is treated with both curiosity and restraint, aware that the past can reveal itself only when approached with care. In recent years, advanced scanning techniques have provided unprecedented insights into the subsurface structures of Egypt. Ground-penetrating radar has revealed cavities beneath the plateau and adjacent temples, some rectangular and symmetrical, others irregular and enigmatic. Magnetometry has detected disturbances in the natural magnetic field, suggesting voids or chambers hidden for millennia. Even satellite imagery, once a novelty, has become a vital tool, highlighting subtle variations in sand, soil, and vegetation that may indicate human intervention. Each discovery is measured against historical context, temple alignments, and local law, creating a complex matrix of possibilities for further investigation. Yet, despite these technological advances, definitive evidence of the Hall of Records remains elusive. Some anomalies turn out to be natural fissures or collapsed tombs, others are inaccessible due to structural instability or legal restrictions. The tension between hope and skepticism persists, as researchers weigh tantalizing hints against the rigorous demands of empirical verification. The mystery endures precisely because every finding invites more questions than it answers, keeping the legend alive in the minds of scholars, enthusiasts, and dreamers alike. The search today is also shaped by collaboration across disciplines. Egyptologists work alongside engineers, geophysicists, and digital modelers to interpret findings in context. Historical records are re-examined with modern tools, and ancient texts are revisited with fresh perspectives informed by archaeology, linguistics, and astronomy. The result is a more nuanced understanding of the landscape, one that balances rational analysis with the acknowledgement of gaps in knowledge. In this way, the Hall of Records exists not just as a potential physical space, but as a convergence point for inquiry, imagination, and discovery. Public fascination continues to fuel interest in the search. Documentaries, academic papers, and online platforms disseminate scans, maps, and interviews, creating a global audience engaged in the mystery. While some coverage leans towards speculation, the overall effect is a heightened awareness of Egypt's hidden treasures and the enduring human desire to connect with the past. The Hall of Records, whether realized as a tangible archive or a symbolic ideal, benefits from this ongoing attention, ensuring that its story remains part of contemporary cultural consciousness. Several unanswered questions guide the search. Is the hall a single chamber beneath the Sphinx or pyramids, or a network of hidden repositories scattered across the desert? Was it intended as a record of human history, divine wisdom, or both? How much knowledge has survived, and what form does it take? Stone tablets, papyri, encoded symbols, or perhaps something entirely lost to time? Each question opens a corridor of inquiry, with answers that may lie just beneath the surface, waiting for the right combination of preparation, insight, and serendipity to reveal them. Exploration today is also constrained by practical considerations, preservation laws, environmental factors, and the need to protect archaeological sites, limit excavation. Unstable tunnels, shifting sands, and extreme desert conditions make physical searches dangerous, reinforcing the role of non-invasive technology. In some cases, modern researchers focus on virtual modeling and simulation, reconstructing subsurface structures digitally to hypothesize potential chamber locations. While these approaches cannot confirm the hall's existence, they provide valuable frameworks for understanding what might lie beneath and where future explorations could be conducted safely. The desert itself remains a constant participant in the search, Its vast shifting landscape continues to conceal as much as it reveals. Sandstorms can quickly cover entrances, erode surfaces, and reshape topography, reminding explorers that discovery is rarely straightforward. The unpredictability of the environment mirrors the broader mystery. Even with modern tools, certainty is elusive. This dynamic interplay between visibility and concealment, discovery and loss, is central to the enduring fascination with the Hall of Records. Another dimension of the search involves historical reinterpretation. Researchers increasingly consider the possibility that clues may be hidden in plain sight. Temple inscriptions, pyramid alignments, and surviving papyri may contain encoded directions, symbolic hints, or metaphorical maps. Interpreting these texts demands both linguistic expertise and imaginative insight, balancing academic rigor with an openness to unconventional possibilities. In this sense, the search for the Hall is as much intellectual as it is physical, an exercise in pattern recognition, deduction, and the careful blending of evidence and intuition. Despite centuries of speculation and exploration, the Hall of Records continues to elude definitive proof. Yet the absence of evidence does not diminish its allure. Instead, it heightens the sense of possibility, reminding us that the past contains layers we have yet to uncover. Each anomaly scanned, each ancient text revisited, and each historical narrative reconsidered adds depth to the legend, maintaining the tension between what is known and what remains hidden. Ultimately, the modern search embodies a delicate balance. Scientific inquiry meets human imagination, rigorous methodology meets the romance of legend, and technology meets mystery. It is a search defined by patience, precision, and reverence for both history and the unknown. The Hall of Records may remain buried beneath centuries of sand and secrecy, yet in the minds of explorers, scholars, and dreamers, it is as vivid and compelling today as it was in the earliest stories passed down through generations. The unanswered questions, the what-ifs, and might-bes, sustain the legend. They remind us that history is never fully known, that knowledge can be concealed by both nature and design, and that human curiosity is boundless. Whether the Hall of Records is ultimately discovered as a tangible archive, a network of chambers, or remains a symbol of hidden wisdom, its story continues to guide exploration, scholarship, and imagination alike. In every scan, every excavation plan, and every new interpretation, the desert whispers its secrets, inviting us to listen carefully, to remain patient, and to never stop seeking. As the sun sets over the endless expanse of the Egyptian desert, the Hall of Records exists, as much in imagination as in the sands themselves. Its presence is felt, not only through the faint echoes of ancient texts or the occasional anomaly revealed by modern technology, but also in the enduring curiosity it inspires across centuries. The allure of hidden knowledge, carefully protected and shrouded in mystery, speaks to a universal human desire to understand the past, preserve wisdom, and glimpse truths that lie just beyond reach. Legends, prophecies, and modern investigations converge in a delicate balance, blurring the line between fact and myth. The Hall of Records symbolizes the interplay of what is known and what is yet to be discovered. It reminds us that history is rarely linear or complete. It is layered, fragmented, and sometimes intentionally obscured. Each stone, each inscription, and each void beneath the sands hints at stories waiting to be interpreted, offering a bridge between the mortal and the divine, the human and the cosmic. The poetic resonance of the Hall extends beyond archaeology or scholarship. It is a metaphor for the preservation of knowledge across time, the idea that what is valuable can endure even when hidden from sight. Civilizations rise and fall, monuments crumble, and records decay, yet the collective memory of humanity persists in legends, oral traditions, and texts that survive against all odds. In this sense, the Hall of Records exists in every story passed down, every curiosity sparked, and every endeavor to explore the unknown. Modern technology, with its satellites, radar scans, and digital modeling, has expanded our capacity to search. Yet it cannot replace the wonder that comes from standing before the Sphinx, feeling the weight of history, and imagining what lies beneath. The mystery remains intact precisely because the hall has not been fully revealed. Its power comes from the tension between potential and realization, the sense that something extraordinary may be hidden, waiting for those with patience, insight, and respect for the past to discover it. Throughout human history, the Hall of Records has inspired imagination, scholarship, and speculation. Its legend persists not because it has been proven to exist, but because it represents the enduring pursuit of knowledge. The same desert that once protected Pharaoh's tombs now shelters possibilities, inviting exploration and contemplation. Its sands are at once a barrier and a canvas, preserving secrets while prompting endless inquiry. The hall becomes a mirror, reflecting our deepest questions about history, civilization, and the legacy we leave for those who come after us. In reflecting on mystery, we recognize that the pursuit itself carries meaning. The search for the hall teaches patience, critical thinking, and reverence for knowledge. It reminds us that discovery is rarely instantaneous. Understanding often emerges slowly through careful observation, reflection, and synthesis. The journey matters as much as the destination, echoing the ancient principle that wisdom must be sought, preserved, and interpreted responsibly. There is also a timeless lesson in humility. The Hall of Records, whether literal or symbolic, challenges our assumptions about human history and our place within it. It suggests that civilizations may have been more complex, more interconnected, and more advanced than conventional narratives allow. By acknowledging the unknown, we honor the ingenuity of those who came before us and open ourselves to the possibility that the past still has much to teach. The legacy of the Hall of Records extends to imagination, art, and culture. It inspires writers, filmmakers, and thinkers to envision worlds where knowledge is sacred, hidden, and waiting to be revealed. It fuels the human fascination with secrets, mysteries, and the profound idea that the past contains wisdom relevant to the present and future. Even without physical confirmation, its impact is tangible. It shapes how we explore history, how we interpret evidence, and how we cultivate curiosity. As night descends over the desert, the Hall of Records stands as a quiet testament to continuity and preservation. It embodies the tension between visibility and concealment, the dance of light and shadow across human memory. Whether hidden beneath stone or residing in the realm of ideas, it symbolizes hope that knowledge endures and that discovery, in its many forms, remains possible. Its story is a reminder that the past is not fixed. It is alive in our questions, our searches, and our imagination. Ultimately, the Hall of Records is less about physical chambers and more about what it represents: the endurance of human curiosity, the safeguarding of wisdom, and the recognition that the unknown is both humbling and inspiring. It teaches us to value patience, critical thought, and wonder, reminding us that the act of seeking is itself a form of reverence. In this way, the legend endures, a poetic echo across millennia, inviting each generation to listen, to ponder, and to dream. And so, as the desert winds continue to shape the sands, and time quietly erodes the monuments above, the Hall of Records remains hidden, enduring, and eternal. Its essence lives in every inquiry, every story, and every quiet moment spent contemplating the mysteries of human history. In this it achieves a kind of immortality, not as a physical repository alone, but as a symbol of the timeless human quest to know, to preserve, and to understand the hidden truths of our world.